Hello everyone, I'm Wes Sego and this is AOC 2, Term 1308, Project 2 video review. This is my astrophotography image time calculator project. So in this video I'll explain the project and I'll give you an overview of the project and the code and talk a little bit about what I could have done better. So to explain it, first thing I'm going to start it up so that you can at least see it. And the Camera Factory creates one of three different types of planetary or astrophotography imaging cameras. The planetary camera and the deep sky camera are both monochrome cameras. Of course, an SLR camera is a one-shot color camera. So with the planetary and the deep sky type cameras, with those being monochrome, you're going to take pictures through different types of filters, and you would use an electronic device to change the filters. So that device takes about 1 to 2 seconds to change a filter, and then you would need probably 10 to 12 seconds for the telescope to just, stop shaking just from that tiny little bit of movement. So you're going to have some time in there for that as well. So the planetary camera, typically you need to get your images done in about less than 4 minutes. Depending, and that's, take into account a planet like Jupiter. Jupiter's more than 500 million miles away in most cases, but most times of the year. But it even though it's so large, it rotates on its axis very, very fast. It's less than 10 hours for 1 day on Jupiter. So that's the reason why you have about 4 minutes. If you take a few thousand quick video images of it, and you allow that to go past 4 minutes, once you stack those images up, the cloud bands and the great red spot and any moons that you're getting in your image will have moved enough in just 4 minutes for it to cause your picture to be really blurry. So that's the idea behind that. On a deep sky camera, that's not quite as important. So you're just going to run 10-minute images for each filter that you use. And in that case, on the planetary one, you're going to use 3 filters. Maybe 4 depending on what you're doing, and on the deep sky camera you're going to use at least 4, one for the 3 colors, also one to get darks, and then you may be photographing something that you want to get like the hydrogen or the oxygen to pop like a nebula. So you could have as many as 5 filters on that, which would be 4 filter changes. So in this I allowed 1 minute to change filters. That gives about 15 seconds per change. So I just made that constant. And then, of course, on the SLR camera, you've got the filter that's on the lens, and that's it. So you don't have to make any changes. So the overview of it, I'm going to go through it really quickly and show you what happens. I'm going to start kind of at the bottom. The segmented control for the background color, gray, red, blue, it defaults to gray. So I'm going to keep it on gray because that shows up a little bit better. I used a switch statement when I coded this, really for no better reason than other than SDI and AOC1. I've never used a switch statement in any of my projects unless it was just a requirement, so I thought that'd be a good place to do that. The info button leads to the second view. When that opens up, there is a back button. Of course, it was required to have the name in there and a back button. Back button will take you back to the first view. I did add the extra challenge of putting in an email button. I grabbed this off of App Coda. Kudos to them. There was a really good tutorial on that. And I'll also show you that in that, during making that, I did set up the event handlers to log out. So if you send the mail, it does give you a mail sent. If you cancel, it gives you 2 options. You can save the draft. It tells you down here that the mail was saved. Or if you cancel and you delete the draft, it says the mail was canceled. So get back to it. The next thing up was the stepper control. That was a requirement. We'll move this back over here. My stepper control, it starts at 1. There's no 0. There was a requirement that you couldn't have a 0 result, so I started mine at 1. It only goes up to 9. I also added in this text field right here, or this text label. It wasn't in Alexia's view, but it just seemed to make better sense to me. If you choose the planetary camera, it tells you up here. So that would disappear if I put it into that view. So I decided to leave it this way. The first value of quantity of photos 1 is actually hard-coded in there because it doesn't look at that until you touch it. But once you click on it, it's actually updating that view. And when you go back to 1, that is a dynamic field. It's not, obviously it's not reverting back to that state. So I only chose 9. Mine won't go past 9. I just thought that, well, actually, for the reason was that it would have made it larger than my text field. I would have had to decrease the text size, but 9 is plenty to show that this thing works. So getting into my text field, it does display the camera type, which was a requirement. The initial display when you start it, if you notice that, it was result. There's nothing in there except just our results. Then when you begin to click on them, they do change to show you what type of camera. It's always left justified, which was a requirement. And the one thing I did add the close control, even though it wasn't really something that this app would benefit from. Alexia showed it in her video, so I put it in there. And there was one other thing that I added a resign first responder, so that at least once this keyboard comes up, you would be kind of stuck. You really didn't need this type of control, but it was a requirement. So by adding that resign first responder, at least if you touch one of the buttons, it will hide the keyboard for you. So that was the reason that I did that. My subclass buttons, of course, I have planetary, deep sky, and SLR. That's for the 3 types of cameras and the 3 subclasses. I used UI button.alpha method to set the state so that it would at least show you that it was grayed out or that it was a selected button. If you notice down on my NS log, it's logging out which type of button I hit. One of the requirements was that once you press one of the buttons, it had to become inactive. So if you notice, I am clicking, and that's it. That button is inactive until you hit a different button. So I hit that requirement. Of course, choosing a different subclass button will cause that button to become enabled again. So the subclass buttons do call a single event handler, and that handler just uses a tag from which, to differentiate which subclass button was hit. The factory method, I did implement my factory method. Almost the same as last week. I mean, I did make some changes to it, so I did rewrite that. But the base method is overridden in the subclasses. In fact, in this one, I declare my base method, but I don't have any calculation in it. It doesn't do anything. So there is a single execute button down here that triggers the factory creation, and that computes the result based on the quantity of photos amount selected in the stepper value. We did have to use functional IB outlet and IB action elements. Of course, you can see them right here in my view controller H. These are the ones that I used. And all of the UI types on here are present. So I'll go through it real quick, let you see what it does. If you select the planetary camera, I set this one up by default to run for 3 minutes, plus you have the 1 minute for the changing of the filter. So each iteration of that should give you 4 minutes. When I calculate, it gives me 4 minutes. If I run that up to 5 photos, of course it goes to 20 minutes. The deep sky camera is going to give you, I chose 4 filters, so it's going to give you 10 minutes of data for each of those 4 filters, plus 1 minute for changing the filters, so it should come up to 41 minutes per photo. Calculate time, you get 41 minutes. Bump it up to 2, it's 82 minutes. And of course, for an SLR, you're just going to image for 10 minutes. That's it, no filters. So each iteration of that would give you 10 minutes. So that's it. Run it up to 60 minutes, you get one hour. What could I have done better? If I had more time, I would have created button images instead of using the UI button.alpha method. But it worked. I mean, at least you could tell which button was pressed. And the other thing I thought about was if there were more, I mean, this application is never going to have more than those 3 subclasses, so that was good enough. But to use if-else statements in coding that. But if there were more, I would have probably used a switch statement there just to save some code. I mean, being that there are only 3, it didn't really save any code, so I went with it. And the last thing, all of my calculations were done in seconds. And then in the final calculation, or when I run that method, calculate image time, it actually takes the result and divides it by 60. All of my stuff was, all of my variables were ints. If every time that I put in there was divisible by 60, it was all based on minutes. So I just left it as an int. But I mean, I do realize that if I had, some fractional minutes in there, that I could have cast that to a float and got that to be exact. So that was it on that. So the last thing I will do is I'll start this up on my iPad, and I'll show you that the mail does work. So gosh, this video is going to go really long. Alright, there we go. Let's see. Go ahead and start up Air Server. Go over to that page, send me an email, go ahead and send. And depending on whether or not the servers at school are working quickly, I just heard it hit, so go in there and take a look. There's my email, and there's the email that it sent to me. So that's it. Sorry for the really long video. Really great project. I learned a lot this week. I hope everyone had a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.